Hi and welcome to Magic Lantern DVD Guides, how to take great photos with your digital SLR. You know, the best thing about a digital SLR is that it combines the artistic controls found in a traditional 35mm film camera with the convenience of a digital recording format. It's the best of both worlds. Point-and-shoot digital cameras might be fine for snapshots, but serious photography requires nothing less than an SLR. Since you're watching this DVD, I'll bet I can make a couple of assumptions about you. You've already got a digital SLR and you want to learn how to take better pictures with it. Well, that's exactly what I'm here to help you do. And fortunately, to be a successful photographer, all you really need is some basic equipment and a desire to learn how to use it. It's not necessary to have the latest, greatest camera that money can buy, a dozen different lenses, or lots of accessories. Being a good photographer isn't about how much equipment you own, it's about knowing how to use it. Becoming a great photographer will come about mostly from experience, but the first step is to learn the basic concepts of photography. The good news is that digital photography makes learning much easier and less expensive than it was in the old days of film, because once you've bought your camera, digital is virtually free. There's no film to buy, no processing cost, and best of all, you can see the results instantly when you take a picture. So you have the chance to fix mistakes or experiment with something new. It's interesting to note that most of the concepts and techniques we're going to talk about today are timeless. They were as relevant 50 years ago as they will be 50 years from now. Digital image sensors may have replaced the film in our cameras, but that hasn't changed the basics of photography. So, what are we going to do in this workshop? First, we're going to talk about the many advantages that SLRs offer over other digital cameras. Second, we're going to take a look at a few different lenses. You've got to start thinking of your SLR as two machines in one. The first part is the camera body itself, and the other is the lens. Third, we'll tackle the hardest part of photography for some people to grasp, and that's exposure. Getting the exposure right is critical to good photography. But more importantly, and less obvious to beginners, is that different exposure settings can make big creative differences in how your final pictures look. Fourth, we'll talk about the importance of getting the focus perfect and how to do it. Fifth, we'll discuss the different options your camera offers for quality settings. Sixth, we'll take a look at white balance. Seventh, I'll have some tips for getting better results with your camera's built-in flash. And finally, we'll talk about good composition. So we've got an awful lot of ground to cover, and we'll be moving quickly. I suggest that you watch this DVD all the way through once before trying to put any of my advice into practice, and then watch it again a few weeks from now. Certain parts will make a lot more sense after you've had more experience shooting. So let's get started. In my experience teaching photography, I found that beginners often believe in certain myths that can hold them back. Not only are these misconceptions not true, but they actually provide ready-made excuses for taking bad pictures. So let's dispel what I think are the 5 biggest myths right now. Now, myth number 1, you need lots of expensive gear to get great results. That's completely false. Many professional photographers shoot with one camera and one lens, and sometimes they aren't even the top-of-the-line models. In fact, these days, there isn't that much difference in picture quality between the most expensive and the least expensive models of camera. Myth number 2, only professionals can get professional results. That's also completely false. You can get professional results even if you only shoot for fun. A professional is defined as someone who makes money with his camera, but that doesn't necessarily make him any better than an amateur who does it solely because he or she enjoys it. Some of the best photographers I know are not professionals. Myth number 3, the camera knows best. Definitely wrong. Don't be tempted to rely on the automatic settings of your camera. In many situations, the camera is not smarter than you, and in the long run, you'll get better results by learning when and how to override the camera's automatic settings to take better photos. Myth number 4, photography is too complex to understand. No, it's really not. Don't sell yourself short just because some people like to make photography seem harder than it really is by getting all wrapped up in technical stuff that doesn't matter much out in the real world. For example, to be an excellent driver, do you really need to know what goes on under the hood of your car? Of course not. You just need to know how to drive. Likewise, to be a good photographer, you don't need to know how lenses refract light, how image sensors capture the picture, or how data is saved on the memory card. Who cares about that technical stuff? I know I don't. I just want to take great pictures. And myth number 5, there are no rules in photography. Yes, there are. Like most things in life, there is a right way and a wrong way to do things. Now, you can break the rules sometimes, but mostly you need to stay within certain boundaries if you expect other people to admire and respect your work. So those are the 5 big myths that I like to get out of the way right from the start. From here on out, you are hereby prohibited from using any of them as an excuse if you don't like the way your photos turn out. Remember, the success of your photography is 100% in your own hands. Digital SLRs are arguably the most versatile type of camera and are therefore the best choice for creative photography. As you know, there are dozens of different SLR models available, with new ones coming out every month. And I'm going to assume that you already have a digital SLR because this DVD isn't designed to be a buyer's guide, and I'm not going to tell you which camera to go out and buy. I can assure you that whichever digital SLR you own, it's good enough for taking great photos if you know how to use it. So when you strip away all the bells and whistles, all digital SLRs function pretty much the same way. Some models have image stabilization, dust removal systems, higher resolution, extra rugged construction for professional use, or even special menus for editing your pictures in the camera. But so what? Those features might be nice to have, but they don't have anything to do with the basics of good photography. And that's what we're here to learn about today. Everything we'll talk about in this DVD can be put into practice with any digital SLR, from the least expensive model to the top-of-the-line pro camera. So first of all, let's start by taking a look at why serious photographers choose to use SLRs in the first place. What makes them superior to digital point-and-shoot cameras? SLRs have high-quality viewfinders that show the scene through the same lens that takes the picture. So what you see is what you get. This makes it much easier to focus, check your exposure settings, follow action, and fine-tune your composition. SLRs have interchangeable lenses so that you can choose the right lens for each photo situation. You can pick from zooms, wide angles, telephotos, and even macro lenses. SLRs power up quickly, so you won't miss a shot waiting for the camera to get ready. No shutter lag. SLRs respond instantly when you press the shutter button. There's no frustrating delay like you get with point-and-shoot cameras. SLRs can take several photos per second, one right after the other, almost as fast as you can press the shutter button. SLRs have better autofocus systems and precise manual focus when you want it. SLRs have superior picture quality. Even with the exact same megapixel resolution, an image taken with a digital SLR will look noticeably better than one taken with a compact digital camera, because SLRs have much bigger image sensors and better image processing circuitry. SLRs provide easy access to important controls via dedicated buttons, switches, and knobs on the camera body. And most importantly, with a digital SLR, you have complete creative control over every photo you take, so you don't have to rely on the camera to make choices for you. Even though today's cameras have sophisticated automatic settings, taking great photos usually requires turning some of these features off so you can control things like shutter speed, focus, depth of field, and white balance manually. Personally, I don't want a machine to be making the creative decisions for me, because that takes all the fun out of photography. Now, there are certain settings and controls that can be found on all SLRs, regardless of the model or brand. Sometimes they might be labeled differently or located someplace else on the camera body, but as far as we're concerned in this workshop, all SLRs are very similar. Throughout the rest of this DVD, we're going to be focusing on general photographic concepts and techniques that apply to all cameras, rather than specific buttons or menu settings on your camera. So before we go any further, you need to familiarize yourself with the following functions on your camera. How to change the shutter speed. How to change the aperture or f-stop of the lens. How to change the metering mode. How to change the autofocus mode. How to select the best white balance setting. And how to change the exposure mode. Now, don't worry if you don't understand yet what these settings do. That's what you'll learn during this DVD. All I want you to find out right now is how to change them on your camera. If you need to pause the DVD and dig out your camera's owner's manual, go right ahead. Because there are so many different models of cameras on the market, it would be impossible for me to tell you exactly how to find these controls on your camera. An even better resource than the manufacturer's hard-to-understand manual is to get one of our camera-specific DVDs or books. There are a number of Magic Lantern guides available that will teach you everything you need to know about the most popular models of digital SLRs. Chances are good that we've got a book and/or DVD created just for your camera that would make a great companion to this workshop. So these are the 6 most important controls you'll need to understand. And I'm going to assume that you already know how to change these settings on your camera. Likewise, you should already be familiar with how to turn the camera on, insert and eject memory cards, change lenses, mount the camera on a tripod, charge the batteries, and other basic functions like that. SLR stands for single lens reflex. And as I said, the viewfinder looks right through the same lens that is used to take the photo, so you can see exactly what you're framing. That's where the single lens part of the name comes from. What you see is what you get. Now, compared to other types of cameras, the viewfinder on an SLR is bright, clear, and easy to use. And that's very important because the viewfinder on an SLR is usually the only way to see what you're shooting. Unlike point-and-shoot cameras, where you can use the LCD to compose your picture, most SLRs do not have a live display mode for the LCD. But believe it or not, that's actually a good thing. Even if your camera is one of those models that can show a live picture on the LCD, I'm going to suggest that you don't use it that way. Holding an SLR properly may take some getting used to if this is how you're accustomed to holding a digital camera. But believe me, once you've gotten used to using a real SLR viewfinder, you'll never want to go back to using an LCD again. Now, the professional way to hold